Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tudor, I Hardly Know Her. Today we have me, Emily, the best one, followed by Jeffrey, the second best one.
Hi.
And no Garrett today. Boo. But it's okay, because we have the British guy that I've mentioned a couple times, guys.
Hello.
I think I bitched about him once for not being on it, and I finally got him to be on it. So this is the British guy. His name is Dan.
Hi.
He's actually British, guys. It's super exciting.
I'm actually not. I'm just faking
He
it.
is. So do I. Don't worry.
Wait, what?
So today is going to be a really good one, mostly because of the British guy. I'm basically relying on him.
Well, before we go any further than this, Dan, what is actually your cultural background? Because I know you live here in the States with us, but I know you don't even have citizenship here.
Trump, kick him out.
Well,
Shit, Jeff, he's coming for him.
I have to run. ICE is coming. No, I escaped England.
Escaped.
I mean, have you seen it over there?
He did escape England. Sorry, guys. Hearts are
did.
with you.
No, my background is just I was born and raised between England and then Canada. And
What city were you born and raised in, Dan?
I was born in Leicestershire. I was born.
You pronounce it different every fucking time.
Leicestershire is the area. I was born in the Royal Infirmary in downtown Leicester.
You call your hospitals infirmaries? Is it
Yes.
1945?
No, it's just the name of the hospital.
The Royal Infirmary?
Yeah.
Elizabeth needs
Majesty's-
to update that name.
It's Her Majesty's Royal Infirmary.
Yo, Queenie, please get on that. You gotta update it. Ooh, I just realized the name Queenie from Harry Potter. That could be like a Queen Elizabeth, Queenie. I'm gonna go
Probably
with-
not.
Yeah, probably. No, probably. J.K. Rowling
Keep
was
hoping.
like, that's clever. Nope, it's happening. I figured it out. So he was born in the 1945 Hospital of the Royal Infirmary. Dan's a time traveler. Tell us more.
I'm the doctor.
Oh, fuck. Oh, you're the regeneration?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Pretty
you're the one who
disappointing.
replaces Capaldi. All right.
And the secret's out. We are actually part of the BBC. This has been a fucking trick the whole time. So, tell us more.
What more do you want to know?
How did you so you went you went from England to Canada,
Yep.
from polite to polite.
Yeah. And then came here to, I don't know what you would call
You
it.
came to the Midwest, and that's still pretty fucking polite for the States.
It's better than other parts, definitely.
You could have been in like Louisiana. Sorry, anybody from Louisiana.
And we're back.
And we're back from that brief break from
Dinosaur
our
Tale.
sponsor. We have a sponsor. It's BBC America. BBC America.
Very good.
Thanks. I'm working on my British accent.
That was terrible.
You're terrible. You can't even do an American accent.
I can't.
You're so British. Hey, Jeff, what are we talking about today?
I have no idea, which is
Well-
also the purpose of this podcast.
Oh, actually, I thought you were doing this one. I didn't study either. Oh, no. Dan, teach us everything.
I know nothing.
Start with 1066.
Well, the Battle of Hastings happened. William the Conqueror took over England. And now we're all French.
He went to the future. Time traveler, remember? Oh, man, that would be a terrible ending to the world. We're all French.
We just all
I
surrender
really
to each
need
other.
to stop insulting people from other nationalities since we have so many fucking nationalities listening to this. We have who was our most recent one? Netherlands. Someone from the Netherlands
We have the
listening.
Netherlands,
We
we
have
have
some Australians. A couple Australians.
Yeah.
I bet you everybody in Britain started this and they're like, "Oh, she's so wrong." So, it's fun. I'm kind of interested to see how many things he laughs at me for mispronouncing.
Well,
Luckily, a lot of this is French, and I know more French than you.
I'm sure you do, but you still got Greenwich wrong.
Well, fuck you. It's missing half its letters.
That sounds like a French thing.
It does sound French. Jesus Christ. Okay, you ready?
No, he wasn't French.
So we're actually talking about the military, and I'm pretty excited for this one. And the reason we're talking about the military is because Dan told me our Henry VIII fun fact last week without realizing it. We're going to get to that later. Dan doesn't know this. Every week we have a Henry VIII fun fact. Like, for example, a couple weeks ago, our fun fact was that Henry VIII's cod pieces got so big that he used them to hold small weapons and jewels.
One of my personal favorites, of course, was him suing the dead guy.
Did you know about that, Dan?
I had no idea.
He sued Thomas à Becket because he wanted the property of the churches, like you know how people went for pilgrimages out there.
Yep.
He wanted it, and his only legal recourse for taking it was to sue him for treason. He'd been dead for 300 years. So he took a dead guy to court.
And for some reason,
How
he didn't
English.
show up either.
And nobody thought to wheel in the corpse.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, since you're here,
Broken hair.
I'm kind of curious. What do you know about Henry VIII and that whole time period? What were you taught, and then what, like, were there urban legends you grew up with?
Yes, so a lot of it was things I'm sure are already massive common misconceptions about Henry VIII because, frankly, in England, history is taught very selectively.
Well, your guys' history is ridiculous. Ours is 200 years.
And ours is
2,000.
1,500 years of good history.
Yeah.
After the Romans. So a lot of what we were taught about Henry VIII was that he was just a fat, arrogant king who lost every battle he ever fought.
It had a lot of women.
That's true. Were you guys...
He did have those.
But was he brought into your education based on his split with the Catholic Church? Because that was a pretty big part of your...
So a part of history classes in England was actually looking at famous monarchs over the course of the history of the English, starting with William the Conqueror, who was actually not English and was French.
Yes, he was.
But we looked at all of the major monarchs, obviously focusing on William, Richard I, Henry VIII, Elizabeth. And so because there were so many of them, we really only had time to spend a little bit, do a little bit of discussion on each of those monarchs. So a lot of it was just addressing misconceptions or furthering the misconceptions that were already existent.
What can you tell us a misconception?
For Henry VIII specifically?
Or the Tudors in general. So Elizabeth is fine too. Or Bloody Mary.
The problem is, I didn't really pay attention in class. So I'm honest.
So no, I can't tell you shit all.
No, I couldn't.
Well, it'd be like asking like me about presidents. Like we have a lot of presidents, and there's so many like random
45.
ones like in the middle of history. Like there's like what they call like the single term presidents. Like they only last like a year.
We
like,
go to,
you
we
forget
go to
their
Bruce for that one.
Yeah, like you don't know their names. So we always hit like the big ones. So like obviously we'll do like George Washington, then Abraham Lincoln, and then
Jefferson.
yeah.
Yeah, Taft got stuck in a bathtub. That's our audience member
And-
for this week, Stephanie. She's
Hello,
related.
Stephanie.
I think he's hitting here. I think we're going to see some romance happen here, guys. Hitting on her is what I meant to say. Yeah, there we go. Okay, quick question. Were you taught that Mary was Bloody Mary?
Actually, we weren't.
Thank Christ! I fucking hate that she's called Bloody Mary. It's so unfair.
Although the only misconceptions I can think of about Henry VIII were the ways in which his wives were murdered.
Wait, tell me.
So I think
Divorce, beheaded, died. Divorce, beheaded, survived. Goodbye.
just misconceptions about where the heads were placed and where the bodies were.
I'm sorry, what?
So there were always just rumors about the beheadings and what happened to the bodies after they were beheaded.
Yeah, they were just kind of dumped unceremoniously into a grave together, and there were only two.
Yeah. But, and I think you've corrected me on some of this in the
I did.
past. But maybe you can provide the details.
About what actually happened to
Yeah.
their bodies? Anne Boleyn was dumped into an unmarked grave next to her brother George, and Catherine Howard was, when she was executed, tossed in with them.
So we still don't know where Anne Boleyn actually is.
I'm pretty sure we knew the name of the place where she was dumped, but it wasn't like, I mean, she didn't get a Catherine of Aragon level, and Catherine of Aragon wasn't quite even, she wasn't given a queen's burial, but she wasn't even given any sort of royal. So Henry was just like, get rid of her.
Just disposed of them.
Just get rid of her. So she was just tossed into an unmarked grave somewhere around the tower. I think her body sat for like 24 hours without its head, just chilling in a chapel. But I don't really actually know if it's been exhumed and buried. If it was just dumped, it probably just kind of fell into ashes.
So part of the misconception we had that was never really cleared up by the teachers was that the bodies were actually kept in the Tower of London for a period of time. But the actual truth of that is very much unclear.
It's unlikely. The tower was a palace and a prison, so it wouldn't have been kept in the palace portion.
No.
And I think the only bodies that were found in the tower were those two bodies of young boys found under the stairs.
Yeah.
And they think that those were the princes of the tower. But I doubt they kept them under there. Although, it's your history, not mine. Based on what I know about the tower.
It was a place where a lot of people died.
It's a really sad place. I heard that there's a room in the tower where George Boleyn, you can like find his like writings carved in the wall of the room he was kept in. So, totally going to find that.
You've got to make it to England first.
What'd you say?
You have to make it to England first.
I mean, hopefully one day I'll get there. We keep talking about it, but we'll see what happens. So you guys ready to talk about history or military?
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited about this one because like I know I have a general idea of Henry's battles, but I didn't know all of them. And basically it was just like, fuck Scotland. I'm friends with France. I'm friends with Spain. I'm friends with France. I'm friends with Spain. Fuck Scotland again.
See, I always remember the story of the one where he's like, I just want to own that country. Which one was that one?
I mean, that was kind of him with everything.
that was
Wolsey, give me your palace.
That was more the history of Henry. He saw it, he wanted it, and he took it. And that was true for countries and women.
Veni Vidi Vici.
That's mine now.
That was...
What? No, it's not. Yes, it is now. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
He did that.
Here you go.
Yeah, he just kind of, he was like, I want that one. So... Our guest just said, at least he didn't pee on it.
That's mine. That's mine too.
Henry VIII was a big ginger cat. So I want to start by saying, so for Jeff and maybe Stephanie if she cares, England had vast dominions up until Henry the fucking sixth. Like, I just want to say fuck Henry VI because he lost so fucking many territories in his short reign. Like, I know he was a little bit crazy, but they had a bunch of land in France, and he fucking sucked. And he lost almost all of them, and I think the exception was Calais. So, just so you know, Henry VI was just a few generations before Henry VIII. So, Henry VIII was like, gotta get my land back. Gotta get my land back. So
I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take this back. That's mine too. I guess I'll just have this.
And then he also hated France. So he was like, give me all your money.
At that time, who didn't?
He like went up to France and he put a shank in Francis's neck and was like, give me your money, punk.
Okay, we surrender.
They didn't start surrendering until World War II, guys. Okay, so you ready?
Yeah.
You guys ready? Okay, so first, I wanted to talk a little bit about how what the makeup of Henry's military as it was is, because it's not like ours where we just get kids in it and we have a standing military. His standing troops were a couple hundred guys that were his palace guards. So like 300 or 400 at the most.
At the height of the British Empire under Henry VIII, his standing army was no more than...
So Britain and Calais.
Yeah, it was. He had a standing army of never more than 500 troops at any given time.
Right. So from what I understand, the way that they got troops was one of two main ways. He would tell his lords, the dukes and the other nobles, the earls, viscount, etc. Hey, can you holler at your peasants and tell them to grab their torches and pitchforks and follow me to battle to die in France? And they'd be like, dysentery, yeah, and they'd go. And then the other way was lots and lots of mercenaries, which is coincidentally how Henry VII ended up defeating Richard III. Was most of his people were mercenaries from Germany and France, or maybe just France. But they brought the sweating sickness with them, which we talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
All the weird people he just hired came in from different
Yeah.
countries.
So from what I understand, that's the main ways they got their troops. I think there were other ways. I think some people were like, "Ooh, this looks like fun," and like 10 people were like, "I want to do this voluntarily." But I'm pretty sure those were the main ways. So they ended up having large armies of 30, 40,000. And at his last big battle, the battle of, I guess it wasn't a battle. It was the capture of Bologna. That was not Bologna.
Damn
I
it.
see your face. Bologna. It was French, so it's got a fucked up saying.
The English
he had
pronunciation
like
is actually Boulogne.
What the actual fuck?
You also pronounced Viscount wrong, but you pronounced it Viscount or Viscount.
You just don't say the S?
Basically.
So was
Or at least that's what we
I'm
were taught.
sorry, wait. So was Jane Boleyn Viscountess instead of Viscountess? What the actual fuck? You're just leaving out letters now.
And there we got our explicit on this episode.
That's just the way we were taught to pronounce it. I could be
It's
grossly
pronounced
wrong.
what?
We were taught
Balloon?
to pronounce it Viscount.
No, balloon.
Oh, Boulogne.
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 Fuck. Fine, I'll go with the goddamn.
You're probably right.
No,
I'm
you're
wrong.
probably. Here's the thing. Like, it just depends. Like, there's a surname Beecham, but it's Beauchamp in French. But in English, it's Beecham. So I guess I gotta fucking go with the English pronunciation of it. I was so proud of that one too. I was like, I know this one.
You were close enough.
Balloon now. Anyway, he had like 40,000 troops in that one, and that was like his last big hurrah, and it was semi-successful.
To a degree, you got to remember with the siege of Boulogne, it took them like 3 years to actually besiege the place. The French managed to hold out really well.
Do you mean like to plan it? Because when I was looking it up, it said the siege lasted from just July 19th to September 18th of 1544. Although there were a couple years of follow-ups of bullshit.
So the initial actual battle was very, very short, but the siege itself, they had.
Do you mean the entirety of the siege?
Yeah.
Like from first cannonball to final surrender?
Yes.
Okay, because I was just thinking of the first surrender of the French, because that was until September 18th. I guess I was reading a pro-Henry site, so it's probably going to forget everything that followed after that.
The problem with that particular battle and siege was actually that it was supposed to be Henry VIII and Charles V of Spain.
Yeah,
and
fucking Charles.
Charles kind of bailed on Henry.
Except he bailed on everyone. I have a list of all the times Charles bailed on him. It's ridiculous.
The entire point was that it was part of the big Italian wars that occurred in that time period.
Yeah. And I don't know too much about the Italian wars. I just know Henry VIII got involved a teeny tiny bit.
As far as I know, it was more a continuation of previous wars that were supposed to defend the papacy and defend essentially the Holy Roman Empire, which the Holy Roman Emperor was Spanish at
Charles
the time.
V, yeah.
And Charles just kind of bailed on his allies who joined up with him
which
to
is kind of his
defeat
MO.
the French. So Britain wasn't terribly well prepared for that invasion in the first place. And they had plenty of cannons and plenty of artillery, but the French fort had equally as much. And so the British couldn't actually get any of their military force to the battle.
And you're talking about the first siege, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did want to talk a little bit about the English Navy, because Henry was kind of, I guess he's considered the father of the English Navy.
He is the father of the Royal Navy.
So that's pretty fucking cool. And I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't know that, and that it's not a well-known thing, because he started with 5 ships, one of which was
the Mary Rose.
So this is the Henry VIII fun fact. I want Dan to tell this story.
Was it the story of the sinking of the Mary Rose?
Yes. I know
Also
that happened.
yes.
I know that happened later, but I want you to tell me to tell our listeners what you told me the other day.
So
This is how I got him to do the podcast, guys.
with the Mary Rose, which battle do you remember? Which battle the Mary Rose sank?
It was something with an S.
The Solent.
Yes.
Or Solent. I don't
Yes.
actually. This is the one where I don't actually know how to pronounce it. I think it's Solent.
It's Sal. They just don't do the last couple letters. True
Stop-
British form.
Just stop saying it like halfway through.
It's just the Battle of.
I think it's just
Battle
pronounced
of
Sol in the end. So with the battle, this was one of Henry VIII's final battles before he died.
Yeah, 1544, right?
1545.
It was 45. Yeah, the year he died.
It was, I think, September.
Wait, shit, he died in 47.
No, I think he died in 45.
I'm a big fan of history.
Pretty sure he died the same year.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So at the battle, Henry VIII was actually sitting on the shore watching the battle. The French fleet was planning to invade Britain.
1547.
Oh, you were right.
After being wrong, but I was right eventually.
So the French Navy brought up, I think it was 20,000 troops in several hundred ships.
300.
The entire plan was to invade England, and the British Navy at that point consisted of about 50 ships, which that was Henry VIII's expansion.
Yeah.
The flagship was the Mary Rose, which had been in service for 34 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They had just re-outfitted her with hundreds of new, very, very large guns, which actually brought the draft down so that the ship, the initial portholes for the guns, were only about a meter above the water level.
Oh, fuck.
And so the ship...
Wait, Dan, convert meters to feet for the American listeners, please.
3 feet.
Thank you.
Um,
And by American listeners, I mean me.
so the ship allegedly
You're a
fired
scientist.
all
You
of its
should know
guns
this.
and tried to turn broadside.
You're a scientist. You should know this.
You should.
Sorry, anyway.
At the battle, the ship allegedly fired all of its guns and went to turn broadside to fire its second armament on the right side of the ship. What was supposed to happen was the ship would just turn around and fire another set of cannons. The ship actually just listed and sank on its side because, and this is a big point of contention. Some historians speculate that it was actually hit by a French cannon.
I saw that.
That has
They're
not
just
been
trying to
verified.
make England look better. We're not stupid. We're not stupid. We're not stupid.
Swear it wasn't our
Actually,
fault.
What they suggest is that it was a cover-up and that they didn't want
I
people to think that the ship was actually just that pathetically
Ooh,
weak.
conspiracy theories. I'm just visualizing like all the like.
Why don't we do a Henry VIII conspiracy theory episode?
Just visualizing like fire, and then like you just see like it's like a rocket ship just like launches on one side, just starts teetering.
The ship literally just listed straight to one side and it just dropped to the bottom of the ocean. And this was Henry VIII's last major battle as King of England, and he got to watch his flagship just fail miserably. This was immediately after he had a huge part in ordering
You did.
the rearmament of the ships.
Yeah.
Upgrading all of the weapons, and he'd originally wanted to have a hand in designing the ships. Thankfully, nobody let him do that because that would have been a disaster.
Actually,
Oh man, that'd
I
be
learned
great.
a little bit
Crazy
something
Henry
about that.
designed a ship.
Guys, not that crazy. Because although he didn't, he designed his own ships for his own ships and giggles. That's what we're calling this episode.
Ships and giggles. Oh man.
So he designed ships for his own shits and giggles, but sorry, I'm just really fucking funny. He didn't actually none of his designs were directly put into it, but apparently his designs influenced the next generation of like row barges.
They did.
So not that crazy.
So as the thing just tipped over, do you just hear like a trumpet player just going womp womp womp?
There were like 4 men on violins playing "Nearer My God to Thee," and there were only 12 rowboats, and it was just
James Cameron's gonna do the movie.
and
you're
Kate
doing.
Winslet was there, and it was and even though it was in the middle of summer, Leonardo DiCaprio froze to death.
And he still didn't win an Oscar for it.
He still didn't win no Oscar. It was crazy. I can't get over the ships and giggles.
So this is the thing I love about Henry VIII. He fought a lot of different wars and just tragically lost basically every
All of
single
them.
one. And this was absolutely the highlight of it, just watching his flagship just teeter over.
But the funny thing about that is that he was like, I'm going to be a warrior king. Henry V is my hero. The Battle of Agincourt was everything. Is that how it's pronounced? Agincourt? Say I'm right. Say I'm right. Say I'm right.
It's not Agni Court.
I think
It's
you
Aegina.
might actually be right. That is one I do not know, though.
Okay,
if I'm being
but
honest.
it's a baller battle.
Yeah.
Agincourt. Okay, so like Henry VIII loved apparently Henry V, and not only Henry V, he just really liked the whole warrior king thing, the whole like I'm cool and militarily sound, and so he tried to replicate that throughout his reign, starting in 1512. And like he only became king in 1502. So imagine a fucking 21-year-old like I'm gonna go into battle.
I just visualized him like just trying to intentionally instigate battles just so he can like have an excuse to fight in them.
So his very first battle that he actually fought was Gascony, which was in 1512. And that was an absolute disaster.
To be fair, though, the reason it was a disaster is because his fucking father-in-law didn't show up.
He did not. None of his allies
He was
showed
allied with Spain, and of course Henry was like, I'm going to get France. So he went to France, and he went to Gascony, and he was supposed to be allied with, oh my God, who was the king? Who was the Spanish king? Catherine's father. It wasn't Charles.
I don't remember who it was.
Fuck me. Ferdinand. It was Ferdinand. So Ferdinand was like, yeah, I'll totally show up. And then they never showed up. So I read.
Oh, sorry, you didn't get my call. I thought I sent a pigeon.
I sent a bird. Did it not get there?
Oh,
it got bogged down by those coconuts, and it just never made it. So I did hear that then Henry VIII's troops that he did have there, half of them died of dysentery, and the other half were just like fuck off, and they skedaddled.
There were a lot of troops who mutinied in that battle and just
I never knew that.
My gracious battles, and the men all the time went fuck you.
That was pretty consistent with a lot of wars back then. The soldiers,
they didn't get much besides pillaging.
That's what I thought. Like back then, like there wasn't really much gain as a soldier.
If there was no pillaging and raping, there was nothing to gain.
And that's right. And like and it wasn't just Henry VIII's reign. Elizabeth was just like, they fought for me. Fuck them. Like they did. She didn't give a shit about her troops apparently. So I read one of the books I recently finished. I don't think the author liked Elizabeth very much because he was just like, and she sucked from the start and continued to it was an honest view of it, but like he didn't do any of and then she defeated the Armada. He was like, yeah, she defeated the Armada, but it was all by chance. She did nothing. Although she spent her entire reign continuing to build up the navy that Henry started.
And the mass of the English Empire, which did eventually encompass a third of the world's landmass. That's pretty impressive.
Right, but she did nothing. So I want to get back a little bit to Henry's navy just because it was really impressive. So he started with 5 ships. Henry VII was like, look at my mighty navy. Here's 5 ships for you. And Henry was like,
toys.
Henry was like, okay, cool. And I think by the time of his death, he had 50 or 60. But I saw another thing that said,
I can see Henry VIII doing that. Like, I'm going to have so many ships. Look at the size of my ships in my codpiece. I can fit a ship in my codpiece.
So it all started with at one point he was supposed to go to battle with someone, and so they built 30 ships, and then the battles never happened, but Henry kept them active. So that was the start of the just building of the Royal Navy. So he created a council in his reign. He created a council for marine causes, and they just oversaw the Navy to make sure everything was hunky-dory, and that led to the, I don't want to pronounce this word wrong, but I'm gonna Admiralty.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
And that ultimately became the Office of the Royal Navy.
Yes. So he totally created the Navy.
Navy.
It's cool. So he needed it wasn't just though I know he created the Navy, but he kind of needed it for defense after he broke with Rome, because the Pope could have sanctioned France and Spain, the 2 superpowers, to go on a crusade against Britain. So Henry was like, fuck, I gotta protect us, and we're waterlogged, so that's how I gotta protect us. So he then built a shit ton of defenses from Kent to Cornwall. I can't mispronounce those words.
I mean, you could, but you didn't.
Yeah. So I pulled up one of the images of one of the structures that he made that's still standing. Oh, Jeff, you want to know how much of a dick Henry VIII is? So he
If
built
I haven't already.
he built all of these defenses. Do you want to know what he used to build them? The materials from the demolished monasteries. Henry's a dick. Oh, what's the name of the buildings he
It
built?
keeps construction costs low, though.
Dan, do you know the name of the types of buildings that he made?
I don't.
Shit, they had like a weird name. Henry VIII. One of them was really cool, and I'll post it on our Facebook page. Device forts. That's what they're called. And I'll show you guys this picture of this amazing looking one. Here, Jeff. So he had that built.
Ooh, pretty.
Which is, I mean, I know we talked about it in one of the last episodes, but I'm still amazed by the construction of these places. Like,
I'm always amazed by anything that's constructed before like actual like real technology.
I know.
to
Although,
make things.
I mean,
like,
it's still a technology, just
well,
like
maybe
not
anything
computers.
by hand and
Yeah.
no electronics of any kind or way of measuring things.
Yeah. So Henry started building ships. In 1514, he had a ship. I think one of his first big ships, and it was the Grace Adieu. And it was the first English it was the first English two-decker and one of the earliest warships that was equipped with gun ports and heavy bronze cannons. And then he got really into cannon casting. He wanted to make sure that the Navy could actually defend. Because I think I read that up until that point, the naval excursions were really just like, get as close as you can to the other ship, get on it, stab everybody, and then hop on off and steer your ships away. So the cannons were like, sink them from afar.
And that was really Henry VIII's big contribution to naval warfare. He very much got away from the boarding ships. So
Yeah.
They'll like get really close and jump on it, kill what you can,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and then literally jump ship.
Yeah.
He conscripted all ships to have viable gun ports where cannons could be fired from either side of the ship, and the cannons gradually during his reign got larger and larger, leading to the sinking of the Mary Rose. But they got larger and larger so that England could more effectively defeat invading forces before they could get to the ships or to the mainland.
Yep.
Stuff like back then, especially like naval battles, were way more actually like intense then, especially like probably around there with like England being an island. Like,
Yeah.
to get to it, you need to get a boat.
I keep thinking about it, and I'm like, how did it take this long? Fuck you. What I'm curious about is how long did it take? Like, I don't understand how it took that long to create. I mean, I guess it has to do with the country's economy, but how did it take that long to create a navy, a decently strong navy, when they were waterbound?
Well, especially
like
when you talk about how many ships like Henry VII had, and then they go to Henry VIII that have like that many more.
To be fair, they
made.
always had that playing to their advantage. Like, people couldn't really invade them because they'd risk, crossing the English Channel in shitty weather. I mean, that's part of why the Armada failed, was because they got broken up by shitty weather.
Yeah, but the channel is deceptively small as well. You could take a rowboat to cross.
So like, that's why I'm confused. Like, how did people swim the English Channel?
The reason is,
Like, how did it take that long for a navy to be?
You had to be able to land ships in a place where the English wouldn't expect it, because if you land them just off of Dover, the English is going to have a standing army there. They're going to raise an army, and any soldier you take off a boat, they're going to get slaughtered.
I guess that's true.
So you had to have enough ships and enough capability to sail to somewhere the English weren't going to defend. So you had to be able to sail all through the channel around to the sides of England to land in a place where there wouldn't be such heavy defenses.
I guess that's true. Okay, so in 1545, the same year as the capture of Bologna, I read something, and I'm confused because I read that Henry had up to 50 or 60 ships, but this one said that at one point Lord Lisle had 80 ships under his command. But I only read one thing that said he had 80 ships.
I've never heard anything that said that during Henry VIII's reign there were more than 50 ships in the British Navy.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that one. That one was an inaccuracy. So after Henry died, Mary and Edward were just kind of like, we got ships, we're fine, and they just used it as defense. And then Elizabeth came along and she goes, okay, Elizabeth is her father's daughter to a T. Like from the torture to the Navy, like everything he did, she did. So she continued to build up the Navy. When she first started her reign, she had 39, and she quickly created plans to add 30 more, and the building continued throughout her reign. So that was pretty cool. And that's, again, part of why the destruction of the Armada was made possible. So, yeah. Henry also made some other changes to military in that time. I didn't know this was a change at that time, but one article said it was. But military nobility, so the dukes and other nobles who wanted to curry favor with Henry because he was so set on like warrior kings and like war being this glorious thing that'll make sure he's remembered. Yeah, right. He was like, I want the military to be awesome. So all of the nobility was like, hey, we also want it to be awesome, and they would study it, and they would be the ones who were like the generals of that time period. And this one article said that he had created that, or at least reinstated it, but that sounds wrong. Like I thought throughout the Middle Ages, the military led the nobility, not just the king.
Yeah.
So that sounded a little bit wrong.
Was
but
there
either
a
way,
real like direct like line of rank with these kind of militaries?
king.
It was king at the top, and then after that, whoever the king chose to be his trusted generals.
Which was usually the Duke of Suffolk for Henry VIII. He was
Okay.
BF. So his Superman.
But the king would choose whichever lords he liked the most to command his armies, and he would delegate troops to those armies, first of all, based on how many troops those particular lords raised, and then they would have other lords' armies underneath them fighting with their battle groups.
So that's how Henry VII was able to win. Was there were two Stafford brothers, William and, I don't know, Bob. Can't remember the other one's name. So
Bob Stafford.
Bob Stafford.
This episode brought to you by Bob Stafford.
So William and Bob Stafford each had their troops, and they refused to commit to Richard III's side or Henry VII's side until the middle of the battle, and then they chose Henry VII's. And it they led their troops. So fun fact.
So you've addressed the fact that Henry VIII wanted to be a warrior king a couple times, and I just want to talk about that for a minute because the whole idea of him being a warrior king is a little preposterous. Henry VIII was a bit of a twat.
You don't say.
So his first actual...
Anne Boleyn would agree.
The first battle he actually
So
won...
would Anne of Cleves and
was
Jane
actually-
Seymour and Catherine of Aragon and Catherine Parr and Catherine Howard.
I think everyone agrees he's a bit of a dick. So
Say twat again, though.
twat.
Thanks.
So the first battle Henry VIII actually won was Battle of the Spurs, which was a year after that huge disaster at Gascony.
Yeah.
So at the Battle of the Spurs...
But it wasn't really a battle.
Well, that's what I want to address. The Battle of the Spurs. The British landed 30,000 troops off of Calais and then went to Therouanne.
What was it?
Therouanne.
That sounds like the middle fucking earth.
It's
Is that on the way
Like,
to
I'm
Isengard?
pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Frodo stopped there on his way.
so the historical account was that Henry VIII led his 35,000 troops and gloriously took this city. Well, what actually happened was the French cavalry who were defending the city realized they were going to lose. They fucked off and ran away. They actually surrendered 6 days later. Henry VIII at the battle did not lead a single troop. He was safely on a hill away from the battle watching because he had no heir. So if he'd gotten injured, if he'd lost an arm, that was death. So he was kept very, very far away from any actual action to where he could just see what was going on.
He did that a
So
lot, didn't he? Just
it's-
like,
he
I'm going to sit on
was
this hill
really-
and watch.
So
Yeah.
it's called the Battle of the Spurs because the French fled so quickly that all you could see was the glint of their spurs as they ran away.
Oh, isn't that a clever
so
name?
what's really funny though is he's able to technically claim the Battle of Flodden. Did I say that right?
You did.
Yes, getting so good. The Battle of Flodden. So Henry was at the Battle of the Spurs, and Scotland was like, "Hey, my brother-in-law's gone. I'm going to take England. So he hopped over the border, and Catherine of Aragon was a badass, and she's like, fuck off. And she killed the king. I mean, not herself, but she rode. She was pregnant at this time with one of the babies she ended up losing.
I wonder how.
She was pregnant, and she rode out in front of the troops and did she would hate this comparison, but she did an Elizabeth I, and she kind of rallied them, and they went out and they killed the Scottish king. So while Henry's like, yeah, I'm so good, Catherine of Aragon sent him his bloody jacket that James had worn when he died. So Catherine kicked some Scottish ass.
So
Henry's able to take the claim, though.
That was kind of where Henry VIII excelled. He did choose pretty capable wives. He specified that his wife was Queen Regent of England when he was gone.
He did, and he did that twice because he did that with Catherine Parr too,
Yeah, and
which is crazy.
They were always very capable. He chose wives who were smart enough and strong enough to be able to at least lead the country in the event of his death.
Except Catherine Howard.
Well, we won't talk about her.
And Jane Seymour.
If you're talking
Jane
about
was just boring. We all just
Yeah.
if you're talking about a warrior leader, Catherine of Aragon was a warrior queen.
She's Queen Isabella's daughter. She's got to be a warrior queen. She was born right before a big ass battle where they were, getting rid of all the Moors. But I mean, she's Ferdinand and Isabella's daughter, and they were the warrior king and queen. So you had to be if you were their child. She was awesome, Catherine of Aragon. I know we've talked about her before, guys, but if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it because she was amazing. Don't remember her just as being the jilted wife. So then there was this wasn't really a Henry VIII's battle, but one of his allies, Spain. This was at one of the moments where he liked Spain again, and he was against France. In Pavia, Spain had captured Francis I, and Henry was like, yeah, fuck the French. I'm so excited. And he apparently literally jumped for joy. And then Spain was like, we don't really need him. And they let Francis go. And then Henry got pissed, and he was like, fuck you. I'll be Francis' friend then. So there was a lot of that back and forth. So, and then I've got Boulogne. Bologna.
And
It's
I will
French.
say that's the English. English.
That's
That's the
a whole
English
different
pronunciation. It is a French city, so I'm sure I'm bastardizing it.
No, it's the American pronunciation. It's the English pronunciation. I'm saying Bologna because that's the French pronunciation of it, and it was in France, so they get to take that one. So what I have for the capture of Bologna, it was Henry's last big hurrah, which we talked about already. The siege itself lasted from July 19th to September 18th. And this was the one where Henry captured the castle at Bologna. So there was a castle in the middle, and then an outer ring, and then an inner ring, and then an outer ring. So they burst through the first two rings, and they struggled to get into the castle to actually get that. So probably not Henry. It was probably like the Duke of Suffolk or something.
Yep.
It was like, let's just dig under the wall. So they dug under the wall, and that's how they captured.
And then the French surrendered.
And then the French
As is
surrendered.
typically French.
And the French typically surrendered. And then, it started. Duke of Suffolk was in charge of it first, and then Henry, and then our man Hank showed up, and he was like, I'm gonna finish this battle. So then immediately Charles V, who had been Henry's ally, was like, just kidding, I want to be friends with France again. So then the French attacked Bologna, and then there was a second siege. And from what I understand, neither of them had the military might to defeat one another. So it just kind of was like,
It was just 10 years of back and forth of really nothing.
But nobody ever, like the castle just ended up like not being anybody's. And then they were just like, we got other things going on. And it lasted until through his son Edward's reign. And
then
I think it
delivered to the
ended.
French.
And then Mary I lost Calais, and everything was shit. So that was Hank VIII's military.
Say, Henry sounded like he had a really great time as being a military leader as he wanted to be.
He had, between the Battle of the Spurs and then the Battle of Boulogne, there was about a 30-year period where he did jack shit.
I was looking at that. Like, there were a big chunk of time where he was just so busy executing wives he couldn't go into any battles.
And a big part of why he got into some of those wars, particularly the Italian wars, and then later on the conclusion with the Battle of Boulogne, was because he wanted to gain favor with the Pope, defending the Holy Roman Empire against the French invaders, because he was hoping the Pope would allow him, if he defended the Pope, a divorce.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen because then the Pope struck a deal with the French and the war was
what
over.
Baffles me is, and I haven't really looked into this, so I can't offer any suggestion as to why, but I'm still confused about it. France and Spain were literally violently Catholic. Catherine de Medici, who was the queen mother, whatever you want to call her, the generation after Henry VIII, she kind of orchestrated the mass murder of thousands and thousands of French Protestants, which were Huguenots, and the Catholic had their Inquisition. So like they were violently Catholic, and I don't understand then why Spain sacked Rome. I can't get that. So during the 1520s, mid 1520s, Spain sacked Rome and they captured the Pope. And because Henry was trying to divorce Spain's king's cousin or aunt, he was like, well, shit, now the Pope's in their control. And I just don't get why Spain would do that. I don't think it was just for Catherine. They didn't really give a shit about her.
I think Spain just did Spain things.
Spain did Spain things.
We were bored. We didn't know what to do.
We already took Cortez's gold. What else are we going to do?
But I mean, Henry VIII he did engage in a lot of wars for really dumb reasons. Like the last big war he was involved in was called the War of the Rough Wooing. And I don't know if you read about
We've
this.
talked about that. We love it. Let's talk about it again.
So the whole
Everybody
point
needs
was
to
that
know.
he wanted Mary, Queen of Scots, to marry his pathetic little son. His son was... He really was just a sad case.
He was.
So he went to war with Scotland to convince Scotland to allow their queen to marry his son.
But it started with a treaty where at first Scotland was like, okay, we might be able to tolerate this. And then France stepped in and they're like, but we've got a Dauphin for you. And they're like, oh, we'd rather have her be the Queen of France than the Queen of England because your children aren't all legitimate. So we're probably going to take that whole trifecta.
Well, a couple years before that incident occurred, they'd actually... Henry VIII was notoriously finicky, and he was easily offended. He was.
What?
He was very easily offended.
I am flabbergasted.
Wait, how would Henry be offended by anything?
He is Sir Loyalheart, I'll have you know.
So the initial... God. Stop pointing at me. The initial Tinder on the fire, I guess, was...
Henry VIII's Tinder profile. Sorry.
It was actually what he saw as a slight by King James V of Scotland, a couple of years before Solway Mass. So,
James V was Mary, Queen of Scots' father.
Yeah.
And he died upon hearing he had a daughter.
So the whole thing that occurred was that he was supposed to meet with Henry at York.
Yes, this is when he was married to Catherine Howard, so in 1541 or 1542.
Yeah, it was exactly that time range. So Henry hated going to the north of England, but he went up to the north to meet with his nephew. And the Scottish Parliament decided, nope, you are not leaving because the English are going to capture you and will never see you again. They will try to ransom you back to us.
That was James V?
Yeah. So they prevented...
When James V was a baby, didn't he try and kidnap him?
Yes.
Henry? Yeah.
Oh, all those kidnappings again.
Totally kidnapped.
Kidnapping the third.
So Henry, as is traditionally Henry, decided this was an insult, and so he marched 3,000 troops to the border of Scotland. Now, Scotland did have a relatively good standing army at the time. They marched 18,000 troops, and they actually still lost.
What the fuck, Scotland?
It was a complete rout. A bunch of them, a couple hundred drowned. About 1,200 were captured, and Scotland just
There's
lost.
just like a single puddle where there are 12 faces.
It actually was just a marsh. They just drowned in a marsh.
I just love the idea of like them tripping and not being able to get up and like drowning in a puddle, like a cereal bowl sized puddle.
So drunk.
It was about that.
It was all that Scottish whiskey.
Yeah.
So that kind of led into the War of the Rough Wooing. And so it was just very much back and forth trying to get Mary, Queen of Scots, to marry them. What gets me is, why would
make
you
her
say,
marry my son?
I'm going to war with you to convince you that you should marry my son. That's a little shitty.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's very English.
Recently I saw something, and I think I shared it on our Twitter or Facebook page, and some historians had recreated Edinburgh as it was before. I did say that one right. Don't give him that look.
Edinburgh.
Fucking close enough.
You said borough. It's borough. You don't pronounce letters in English.
It sounds the same. Say the difference again.
You said borough. It's pronounced borough.
Fucking Scottish.
It's a short O, not a long O.
Look, the only Scottish guy I'm okay with is David Tennant. So, like...
David Tennant.
Yeah, it is. Wait, did I tell you that story?
No, I watched Top Gear.
Here's a Doctor Who fun fact for our Doctor Who fans, and it's a little bit profane, but whatever. So when David Tennant was the Doctor, Billy Piper, who played his shitty-ass companion, had... Sorry. Billy Piper, who played his shitty-ass companion, hooked a friend up with David Tennant, and then the friend came back to Billy Piper and said that they should refer to him as David Tennant. So...
He had really big feet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Huge. So, fun fact for our Doctor Who fans. You can cut that out later if you want, Jeff. But I
Man,
think
we're
you
already
should keep it in.
explicit. There's no going back from
Oh, we're
this now.
totally explicit. I think we should just put the explicit tag on our whole every episode.
Yeah.
Historians recreated Edinburgh.
There you go.
Yeah, and they recreated what it looked like before the rough wooing because the English razed it to the ground.
They did.
They were just like, "Fuck your city," and so they had to rebuild it from scratch. It was pretty cool to see that drawing or CAD design, whatever you want to call it. I don't fucking know.
It's gone through some changes, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of.
That's what we talked about in the castle episodes. Like, there is no real documentation of what a lot of these places looked like before they were either remodeled or just, fell over.
So I saw a thing on Twitter today, and it was like, you can buy a castle that Henry VIII owned. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. It's probably one of his minor manors that are still standing. It's like 3 walls standing. They're like, you can own this castle. And I'm like, you can't call it a castle when the walls don't even connect.
It's an outhouse.
Interestingly enough, there are actually some castles that are complete structures, and these are actually in France, that people have tried to buy and recreate to their former glory. But for whatever reason, the French are they're French. So a French bank actually prevented a teacher from restoring some of the most beautiful castles.
That's so depressing.
All because I don't know
France.
why French things.
France.
But you can actually own bits of castle. You literally just go to England to find a pebble.
I don't want to own a bit of castle. I want to own a castle.
You just grab a rock from England, and you're like,
Not a rock.
this was either a monastery or a castle or a peasant stone.
Or a stone that was used to kill a person.
Yeah.
Every stone has history.
It does. So, to recap, Henry VIII had a navy, but he really sucked at war. And then he watched his favorite ship sink because he's a dumbass. Did I get it all?
I think you hit everything.
I think it's a good one.
You just summarized all of Henry's military history right there.
We need to come up with a cool ditty for his military history. It should be like there's divorce, beheaded, died, divorce, beheaded, survived. I think it'd be like lost one, lost, 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 lost one, lost.
Sank.
Sank, lost. I think that's it. That's a really catchy one. Check out our Facebook page. It's Tudor, I Hardly Know Her. I share fun facts about what's been going on today in Tudor history. And
Today or
chats.
300 years ago? 500 years ago.
Today, 500 years ago.
Okay.
So I do today in Tudor history, comma, the year. So like 1542. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So I do that. I share fun little surprises. Like today, one of the a book about Anne Boleyn is on sale for the Nook for $1.99, but this is going up in 2 days, so I don't know if the sale's still going on, but you can check it.
Fun historical memes.
Fun historical memes.
That one
They're
you posted
hilarious.
earlier was great.
The one about being treated like a princess.
Yes.
I liked that one. I was happy with it.
That made me really happy.
I found that on a history podcast page, so I was really happy about that one. Also, guys, I'm thinking that if you guys send me enough questions, we should do a Q&A session. So it could be questions about like how I got into Tudor history, anything like that. But I also have a couple of friends who listen to the podcast and they'll text me with clarifications. So if there's something about one of the episodes that we covered that we didn't get into enough detail for you and you want to know more, get on our Facebook page. I'm going to put up a post and you guys can all comment on it with your questions. And
comment, message, whatever works.
No. Comment on the single post. It'll keep everything linear so I don't lose track of what's there.
Cool.
And we'll do an episode if I get enough that goes over the questions. If I don't get enough for a full episode, I'll just start answering those questions at the end of every podcast until you guys run out. So let's do that. I'm going to do a Q&A thing. I'll post it on our Facebook page and pin it to the top. And also find us on Twitter at Tudor Know Her. I'm a little bit more engaged on that than I have been. So we can have fun back and forths about that. I share a lot of articles on about it. A lot of links to some gossip about England and Henry VIII and all of his shit. So follow us. Also, rate and review us pretty please. I'm egotistical and I want to read what you think about me.
Narcissist.
I am a narcissist. It's pretty fun. So.
Or tell us why you hate us so much.
In which case, I'll just blow you off and pretend that you're stupid.
And we'll still keep cursing.
Probably going to keep dropping the F-bomb.
It's a free podcast. What? You can't
yeah, you
complain.
can't bitch about the free podcast, guys.
Is that the F word we were talking about?
Yes. Free.
Fuck.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
He's just like, fuck.
Free fuck.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're done.
Dan, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
it's
thanks.
nice to actually
Thank you
have
for
a real
having me.
British person
I got a
on
British
the
guy.
show.
Allegedly.
This is the British guy, guys.
Allegedly.
Whenever I'm
You still don't know.
texting the British guy about pronunciations, this is the British guy. So, hey, you should absolutely let us know if you liked having him on it because I want to have him on for future
Just say no.
episodes. I want to have him on for future episodes, and if you guys tell us you liked him,
Hashtag British guy, yes. Hashtag British guy, no.
yes, please hashtag British guy.
God.
So let us know, and maybe I can convince him to be on the episode where we talk about Tudor booze.
That actually would be a really fun conversation to talk about.
I don't.
Especially if there's alcohol involved.
There will be alcohol
trying
involved.
the boozes.
Yeah,
And realizing
no.
how awful they probably
No,
taste
we're
back
totally
then.
gonna try and find recreations of the drink or try our own recipes. Like we'll do that.
Just drink really crappy mead.
We just have to get sewer water.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to hear more British. So yeah, let us know. Hashtag British guy, guys. Let us know what you think. And that's it. So until next time, divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye now.